I was in LA a couple of weeks ago for a benefit gala, and I'm on the red carpet and I see everybody. And when I tell you everybody from, the Def Jam years came out, I was amazed. And
It's 50 years of hip hop
yeah,
celebration.
yeah, exactly. And I see Redman, and I haven't seen him in a really long time. I don't even want to do the math.
Sure.
But he's right where you are. And he says hi to me, but the whole time he's got a camera and he's shooting. And he's talking to me from the other side of the camera. And I am trying to just say hello. And I thought I was going to take a picture with him.
Yeah.
And it ended up just being him photographing me and me photographing him.
That's modern life.
The only difference is he's shooting video,
yeah,
and I'm, on my iPhone. And I thought, okay, he's not going to come from behind the camera, not once.
Really?
And I was like, okay. Like, we already know each other.
Sure.
So, I was like, you look great.
What's it like to see some of those people from the past?
It was wonderful to see all of those folks. You know what it's like if you're in grade school and then you get bumped up to high school or college and you see the same people and everybody's warm and fuzzy and friendly, and they're actually excited to see you, and they want to talk about things that either they do not remember or they only know it happened because it's in print.
Yeah.
As it relates to me and my work.
Yeah.
And if you have on a tuxedo, somehow they know you succeeded because most people would just wear a suit.
It's like a high school reunion. Is that what you're saying? It's a little bit?
Yeah. I guess it is. Only some people are billionaires, and we can count on half of one hand who those people are.
Sure. And some have an album coming soon.
That is true. That is definitely true. But I have to say, every single person, even the billionaires, were really wonderful. And it was so much fun to see them.
That's beautiful.
And just following folks on Instagram, you sort of get the gist of how their life is doing.
Yeah.
But to be in front of them is really wonderful. And for them to ask how you're doing and how your family is doing. And it's just great. And it's exactly what you hope would happen.
Yeah. That these people are still the same. Yeah, they're people. They're just legendary people.
Yeah. And very, very rich. You got to throw that in there.
3, 2, 1. Kevin, how are you?
What, are you not excited to see me?
I'm excited to see you, but I'm really excited to see our guest because we have a legendary fucking guest in the building. His name is Cey Adams. You've heard the silky smooth voice. You see him on all the cameras. We have lights in the building. Cey Adams is a New York City native visionary artist who emerged from the downtown graffiti movement in the 80s alongside some small artists you may have heard of, Basquiat, Haring, Warhol. Shut down the pod right now. Most legendary bio I've ever read here. Adams began his art career in his teens, tagging up subway cars and painting graffiti murals. And even appeared in the Style Wars documentary, the infamous, just a landmark film. In 1983, Cey Adams met my personal favorite Beastie Boys, Adam Horovitz, aka the King Ad Rock, and developed a lifelong relationship. We're going to talk about the Beastie Boys a little bit. And then went on to be the creative director for Def Jam, where the work is astounding. Iconic album covers, logos, advertising campaigns, Run-DMC, Beastie Boys, LL Cool J, Slick Rick, Public Enemy, DMX, Jay-Z, Notorious B.I.G, Usher, Mary J. Blige, and so many more. He's also collaborated with brands like Levi's, Mattel, Apple. How about this bio? IDEO, Foot Locker, Converse. And these days he's kind of returning back to his fine art roots with an exhibition in Austin and a traveling retrospective of his work. called Departure, 40 Years of Art and Design. Last year debuted in Boston, and I was traveling around Miami, Fort Lauderdale. Coming to New York anytime soon? Okay.
All right.
Cey Adams, welcome to Front Center. We are so honored to have you.
Thank you for having me. I have to say, listening to you roll off my bio, I felt like I could just leave and go home.
Yeah, no, I know.
I was like, wow, that guy's done a lot. Like
He's done it. There it is.
There
it is.
Like, I got to go and check my bank account because somehow it's not balancing with all of the stuff that you just rolled off.
You have a life experience wealth. That's what I like to say. A life resume, and it doesn't matter what's in the bank account, but I'm sure
grandkids can't eat that.
But listen, you got stories, and that's why you're here. We met in Vancouver. We were both doing some talks, and I was just in the audience and watching you on stage just show my entire childhood on screen. Just this is what I did with the DMX. This is what I did with the Beastie Boys. Chappelle's show, just hit after hit, and I'm sitting in the crowd, jaw on the floor. And then I got to meet you, and you're a nice, normal person. What the fuck is up with that? You're kind and talented. It's shocking.
You can't have a bigger ego than a recording artist. I could just tell you that.
There
right
you go.
Now. So
you're behind the scenes.
Yes.
And has anyone ever sort of asked you? Has anyone put you in front of the camera or? A
lot now.
Yeah.
I mean, the work that I did, it just feels like it was 100 years ago when I think about all those anniversaries hitting their 25 mark, 30 mark, 35 mark. That's a long time.
Yeah. I'm so intrigued about like what it was like to be a designer in that time and an artist. So we'll start at the very beginning for a second and we'll get there quickly. But you grew up in Queens, not too far from here. When did you first discover that like art was your passion and that was what you wanted to be?
When the doctors slapped me on my ass.
It said, "Welcome to the world, Cey. You're an artist."
I've been an artist my whole life.
Yeah.
Grade school, middle school, high school, you name it. You pick, a year, and I could tell you what I was doing as it relates to art.
Yeah,
it's just something that I've been doing for a really long time. Now, if you ask how I was earning a living, that's another story.
And so you started doing graffiti high school, and then you went to School of Visual Arts. What did you study there?
Design. I thought I was going to be a painter, but you find out really quickly that not a lot of people can figure that out when they're in their late teens, early 20s. And I don't want to say I was disillusioned by the way the real world worked, but I was disillusioned by the way the real world worked.
And so when did you meet Adam Horovitz? Like when did that happen? Where did that happen?
I met all three of the Beastie Boys. So, we don't want to leave Mike D and Adam Yauch out. But we met in front of a nightclub called Danceteria. I want to say like 1981 in there. And I was just trying to get into the club like a lot of people. And this is back when the Velvet Rope was legendary. And if you didn't know the person on the door, you were not going to get in. And it didn't matter who you thought you were. They had to think that you were somebody in order to let you in. And so the guys in the band befriended me, and that was the first thing that I remember, them helping me get in Danceteria. And then, after that, I was.
Were they like, yeah, we're a band. We're a group of performers, rappers, and like what were they like at that time?
Before the rapping part, this is when they were a punk band.
Yeah.
And Adam and my friend Dave Skilkin were in a band called The Young and the Useless. And then the Beasties, were a band, but Kate Schellenbach was also in the band.
Yes.
So they were a a completely different animal at that time. But for me, they just reminded me of friends that I'd had in Queens, and I just liked their energy. And, that was really it. It wasn't even about the music. By the time they approached me, I hadn't even, I think Cookie Puss was a single, and I had heard that. But these are really early years.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can even process what I'm saying.
I cannot. Unfortunately, Kevin really can't because he was born 30 years after this. But no, I mean, I grew up listening to the Beastie Boys, and I read their book, and I'm a huge fan. And I think, learning about those early, sort of Lower East Side years, it just, it does feel out of a movie for me because I can't picture it. So, but I want to understand it from a designer perspective. So you become friends with them. And then they're like, "Yeah, we have this band. We're going to put out this album. Can you make us a logo?"
Not even an album. They
just
had
one single song.
They had an EP out called Pollywog Stew, and they were releasing Cookie Puss as a single.
And it's a joke, right? It's like a parody song.
Well, I think they were very serious about what they were doing, but they were having fun while they were doing it.
Yes.
I don't, I think they wanted it to be received, by as many folks as possible. What I remember the most was they had a pretty big crew of folks that they hung out with. And so there was Dante Ross and Wolf, and like I said, Dave Skilkin, and there was a couple of female friends, but they had a lot of people in their crew, and so I felt like I was adopted by them, and then all of a sudden I was a part of their crew. And this is years before License to Ill, so you have to imagine that the closest thing that I can relate it to is something like the Little Rascals. and I've never
just a
made
crew
that
of misfits.
analogy before, but we were just having fun, and I was from Queens, but I was coming downtown, and the East Village, the West Village, all of that was completely foreign to me because I just didn't know how to get in any of these clubs. I didn't know where they were, whether it was, A7 or the Mud Club. They knew all of that.
And so you would just show up and say, "I'm with these guys." And
I didn't have to say
people.
anything. When they went to the doorman was just how many, and we were inside.
And so they were just locally famous, just because they were just good time.
Yeah.
And so were you the only artist in the crew? Were you the art guy, or they had other artists?
Dave Skilkin, rest in peace, was an aspiring graphic designer, but at that point he was just into graffiti, and the other guys sort of dabbled, but I don't want to give the impression that they wrote graffiti because I know that folks that took that really seriously might take offense to me saying that. So I will just say Skilkin was probably more excited about it than anybody else, but even his participation was limited to just sort of bombing in the West Village.
Did you consider yourself a graphic designer at that time? Was that even a thing that?
No, not. I'm trying to do the math. No, not really. No, because it predates the drawing board and all of that, and Def Jam, hadn't started yet. So what I was somebody that had graphic sensibility.
Okay.
I will say.
And so when you have graphic sensibility and you're like, "Hey, we need a logo, we need an album cover for this new song." I'm so fascinated by the tools. How did you send them, or you didn't just send them a Dropbox link and put it in their email, right? So it's
No.
how did you make something for them and then give it to them?
The same tools that we use now, a Sharpie, a pencil, an X-Acto knife, a T-square, but they knew they wanted something that looked like graffiti.
Okay.
So that wasn't difficult. I knew how to do that, and so
you drew it.
I drew it.
And
we
then
took
gave
it to Kinko's, which is FedEx office now.
Sponsor the pod.
They wanted to use it on T-shirts and flyers.
Yeah.
And so it didn't have to be camera ready. It was fine. And I did quite a few variations of it. Recently, Beyond the Streets did an exhibition not that far from here.
Yeah.
And this was, I think, the first Beyond the Streets in New York. They did one in LA, and then a few years later they came to Greenpoint, Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And they commissioned me to make a giant replica mural of the original Beastie Boys logo. And so I hand painted this thing as an installation for this exhibition. Adam Horovitz and the Beastie Boys kept everything that I'd made from that period. And so they had all these little original drawings that I had done. And I hadn't seen a lot of that stuff since the 80s. And I was amazed that they saved
And they kept
everything. And now when Beyond the Streets is traveling around the world, those original drawings are in those exhibitions as long as they're representing a Beastie Boys installation. It just depends because, you know, they seem like they're going all over the world, and I don't know when it's included and when it's not. I just know.
Yeah.
I usually see things on the internet, and that's how I know. Oh,
You're like, oh yeah, there's my drawing, and it's in a museum.
Yeah.
You know, that's a yeah. We all have that feeling. Yeah, that'll happen to all of us.
Yeah, it happened to me just yesterday.
Yeah, Kevin, that happens all the time. So after sort of that sort of early design work in hip hop, is that the first thing you'd ever done with an artist? Was the Beastie Boys?
No, I did a single for the you know, maybe it was. I was gonna say I did the Real Roxanne, but I think that was a little bit later, like just a few years later, because I don't want to get my math mixed up.
Well, we have the math here. So from there, you meet Russell Simmons and Rick Rubin. They were creating a little record label called Def Jam. What was the status of that? Because famously, it started in an NYU dorm room. Like, when did you sort of enter the picture there?
Right then and there.
Okay.
When Adam and the guys meet Rick, I met him at the same time.
Yeah.
And when Rick was putting the label together, he was a DJ.
Yeah.
And he knew exactly what he wanted the Def Jam logo to look like. And so the Def Jam logo was an homage to DJ, as in the DJ. And so Rick designed it. I should say he art directed it. And he had a young person that went to NYU do the physical graphics. And then, he gave it to me to take a look at and said, what do you think of this? And I was like, okay. But he had it all mapped out himself. I mean, he probably wouldn't go into a whole lot of detail about it, but he designed that logo and he supervised the execution and everything. I was just there.
Yeah. And so they brought you in to be what is the founding creative director of this
Well, that's all
business?
Beautiful language.
I was going to say, did they have an office? Did they have a business? Did you get a business card, health insurance? Like, what type of job is this at this time?
Like I tell people, it was more like a clubhouse where people had like-minded ideas and nobody went home. So it was, and that's why I liken it to a clubhouse, because there was a lot of hanging out and a lot of people waiting for their dreams to come true.
Yeah. So less of a company and an office and more just like a group of people hanging out together.
But they did real business.
Yeah.
And people aspired to real greatness. But the early years of Rush Artist Management were also overlapping. And a lot of what I'm remembering is when Rush was around, and Rush predates Def Jam by quite a few years. And so Rush managed the Beastie Boys before Licensed to Ill. They managed Run-DMC, Public Enemy, LL Cool J, Jimmy Spicer, Slick Rick.
Yeah.
The EPMD, Stetsasonic, De La Soul,
Iconic.
Eric B. and Rakim,
Yeah.
Big Daddy Kane. So they managed people that were not necessarily on Def Jam as well. But that was real, where my entry point it comes in. So I'm at Rush and I meet Russell. And this is even before I met Rick. I met Russell first.
Yeah.
And then I met Rick. So by the time Rick and Russell meet, I'm just in
Part
the
of the
mix.
fabric, yeah.
Yeah. But it's also like there was not a lot of talking about what needed to be done. It's just you are in the room and you can survey the situation and you realize, oh, there's a lane for me right here that nobody's, going down because everybody's in the I want to be a rapper, producer, DJ,
Sure.
songwriter, and I'm in the
Yeah.
graphic design, graffiti lane. And
there's
all
not a
by
lot of
myself.
other people
Yeah.
there. You're like, someone's got to make this album artwork, and it looks like me.
And the only person that was working there, in a freelance capacity was my buddy Eric Hayes.
Okay.
Because he was doing graphics for
Legendary.
Rush. So he did the Rush Artist Management logo. He did the logo for EPMD, and a bunch of other things for other labels. But Eric was the one that, really showed me how to do traditional cut and paste graphics and how to use all of the tools. And then I had to, take that and sort of go off and really, carve out, what my lane was going to be. Because at Def Jam, it was more like if you did not make a place for yourself, there would be no place because everybody was just preoccupied doing their thing.
Did artists give you vision or like briefs or like input of what they wanted their artwork to be?
Some bands did, but most of them this is their first record.
Sure.
And I think they put all their time and energy into the music. And when it came to doing a photo session, that was sort of the closest thing that they got to participation. When it came to things like graphics and logos, they didn't really, play a serious role in that unless you went to them and you sat them down and you explained how a logo gets designed. And most of the time, they just trusted you to do what you do and
trusted the label.
Yeah,
to just handle that part of promotion.
They just wanted to make sure that their photo was right. And that's
so they look good on the cover.
A lot of people understand.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And so how involved was Rick in sort of like creative vision of all the sort of artwork? Because, today, as of this year, he's a creative visionary guru that, everyone, looks up to because he's got a book and, he has been a hero of mine for a long time. Was he involved in sort of helping shape everyone's sort of vision for their art?
Never seemed to not know what he wanted. He never seemed indecisive. He always knew. And the same way he knows with the music.
Yeah.
He was that way with visuals too. He was just in it deep.
Yeah. Shout out to Ghetto Gastro providing the Bop Tarts and the toaster pastries for the show. It's just so interesting to me to think about sort of early Def Jam record album art. Like at some point you create an internal company inside of Def Jam called the Drawing Board. How big was Def Jam at that point, and why did you decide to sort of have like an internal creative sort of brand?
Well, the idea came from myself and my partner Steve Carr, and the idea was that we knew we couldn't do it alone. You could feel the label growing. We thought we're going to need support staff, and we didn't have any money. And so we thought if we went to Def Jam and we got a small business loan, we could staff up, and then we could handle all these other projects. But we sort of saw the writing on the wall right from the start. And to Def Jam, what we were doing was small potatoes. To them, okay, we wanted to start a design firm, and we wanted to buy some computer equipment. And this is the early days of Apple.
Sure.
And to spend $10,000 to outfit a studio back then might as well have been $1 million.
But you did it.
We did it.
Yeah. And how many people were sort of part of this?
Well, in the beginning,
team?
It was Steve and I and an intern.
Mm-hmm.
And then we hired one designer, and then another, and then another. And then, at one point we had about 15 people working for us. It was quite a bit.
Yeah. That sounds a lot like Center. That's it. Exactly how our origin story. Me and Rick Rubin and
they were putting
DMX,
out a lot of music, and we had to keep up. And when the drawing board started to make noise, no pun intended, we started getting calls from other labels.
Okay.
So we didn't aspire to work with all of these record labels. It was just that people started calling us because the music took off.
Sure.
And people look on the credits and they say, oh, we want those guys. And what we thought was interesting was that we wanted to have our own identity independent of just the art department, because we thought what we were doing was that important. And I knew right from the start that my individual goal was always about elevating the form of Black art to a higher level, because prior to that, the R&B records that were coming out, they just looked like the same stuff that came out in the 70s. Although, at least in the 70s, they were using cool illustration, like we think about Parliament and things like that. And then I think they just sort of lost their way, and everything was, a white backdrop and the guys in a silk suit. And I was just like, this can't be the fate of hip hop.
Yeah. And so how much of that music were you a fan of? Would you listen to? Would you get to hear like the albums before it came out?
Oh, certainly. Yeah. I mean, we would sit in a conference room and we would listen to the music with the artists, and they wanted to make sure you really understood it inside and out. And it was a small label, and everybody there was really passionate about what they were doing. And, the funny thing is, the other day, I was in LA for a 50th anniversary get together with all of the folks from Def Jam, and we were honoring my friend Leo Cohen. I mean, when I tell you everybody was there, everybody was there. Jay-Z, Diddy, Ludacris, Jermaine Dupri, like just go down the roster of all of these people, and everybody was there. Redman, Method Man, T.I., Swizz Beatz. It was just everybody. Leo has touched so many people over a 40-year period. And it just, everybody came out to support him. Warren G, Domino, just, I could just think about everybody that was on that label and all the music that they put out. They were all there. And Slick Rick kicks off the night, and my friend DJ Cassidy does this thing called Pass the Mic. And it's literally just one person comes on, they do a hit, next person comes on, a hit, a hit, a hit, a hit, a hit. I mean, Curtis Blow, Slick Rick, it just went on and on and on. And you're just thinking, what more could they possibly do? And then all these folks go off stage. After Public Enemy closes it out with Fight the Power, they all leave the stage. And then DJ Jazzy Jeff comes on. And you're like, huh? And, I'm thinking, Jazzy Jeff and the Freshmen, are they getting back together? And I had no reason to think anything different. And then LL comes out, and he proceeds to just rip the stage in two. And I'm telling you, it was already at 15 because Public Enemy closed it out. And then LL comes on, and it's just like, psh, and he's the first artist of Def Jam.
Yeah.
And he is at the top of his game. And man, I was a little kid again.
Yeah.
And we just had the best time.
How does it feel to sort of be in this moment now, looking back, knowing that these artists that were just, your clients, right? And just, partners, collaborators, friends, transform the music industry, transform the world. And, really their impact is lasts and spreads to every single part of life. Truly. It
feels great. It feels really great. You have to understand that when a lot of time passes, you can't guarantee that people are going to be as excited to see you as they were back in the day. But here we are. Everybody's there. They're all dolled up. We have our little tuxedos on, and the women have their cocktail dresses on. And, people are just dripping with success. And it was just really great to have people be as excited to see you as they were in the past, and they want to know how you're doing, what's going on with family, and it just made me feel great because you can't assume that that's the way you're going to be received because so much has happened. And like I said before, we went on the air. Some of these people are billionaires now. And I'm not one to count anybody else's money, but I have to say it's really impressive to see Jay-Z after all these years and to sit down and have a chat with him and for it to be warm and fuzzy. And, same thing with Diddy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, good, because you just don't know. And you're excited to be in the room because we all share this, common history, but you don't really know how people are going to respond when they see you. I know how excited I am to see them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's funny because to us, these are, icons, legends, sort of mythical people. But at the same time, these are just human beings like, that, sort of going to eat somewhere tonight for dinner and go to sleep and maybe watch, a little bit of reality television. Who knows? You know what I mean? Like they're just people. And I'm sure to know them, it's like, again, like your high school reunion where there's just some people that it doesn't matter how long you've seen them. You see them again. You're like, hey, yeah, like you can just kind of click back in. And that's pretty surreal for those people to be billionaires and icons like Jay. And again, I have so many questions that I want to talk about sort of the stories behind the artwork. And we, don't want to have you here all night, but, I have to ask, just like DMX, Flesh of My Flesh, Blood of My Blood is one of the most iconic artworks of all time. Just, personal favorite of Kevin and I's. Like, just take us through some of that. Like, how does that idea get pitched? Like what is DMX's involvement in this? And like, what is it like to work with someone like him?
Well, the first thing I have to say is, throughout all my time at Def Jam, I might have about 4 artists that I think are absolutely brilliant when it comes to creative direction. And DMX is one of those. Yeah. And, a cover like that, to me, sort of art directs itself because the title is so out there. You really hope he's willing to go there visually in the same way he did musically. And he did. And big shouts to the photographer Jonathan Mannion because he did a lot of the heavy lifting. Jonathan photographed so many things for us at Def Jam. He photographed all of the Jay-Z album covers, or at least the first 4. He did every one of DMX's, and then so many others, I can't even name them. But the thing about DMX that was really great was that you would sit down and have a conversation with him about the creative and explain to him what you thought was going to happen, and then he will chime in and say, well, what if we did this and this and this? And a lot of times budget sort of determines just how far you can push things. And you have to remember that this is a time when we're really busy at the studio.
Sure.
And these guys, between Jay-Z, DMX, Ja Rule, these guys were putting out 2 albums a year. That's a lot.
1998.
And 2 to 3 singles. And that's just those guys. There was a whole thing with all these other, acts that you've never heard of and nobody else has either.
Yeah. And
we were working on those as well. And we were really busy. And so when you have DMX's attention and ideas are flowing and you have the support of management and the record company, you want to make it as good as you can make it. And we were so busy. I never, like to pat myself on the back, because this was a place where you just had to keep going, and it was always on to the next, on to the next, on to the next. They never made you feel
you didn't have enough time to overthink it. Yeah.
Yeah. And there was no patting you on the back. You did a great job as always.
Well, that's why we're here today.
What else you got? What else is going on?
What's the next single going to look like?
Yeah. And it's just sort of the way you were raised. It's like if you grew up in a military household and you don't know what a hug feels like.
Well, yeah, Kevin, who, again, there's this thing called the CD single back in the 90s where, you put out the album, but then there would be a single, and that also had its own artwork.
Oh, that's crazy. Is that the stuff they put like in the square on Spotify?
That's what they put on Spotify, yeah.
Okay.
They just kind of threw it out.
As soon as you say Spotify, I was like, okay, clearly he's not in
I got CDs.
Yeah, I know.
I
just like to kid around with
inherited
Kevin.
My older brother is a big binder of CDs.
That's
so
right.
I know what we're talking about.
This is the part of the show, and I said I have grandkids older than you. I don't, but
yeah, you might as well.
Very close.
But it is at least, it's nice that like some of that album artwork, I know that it's, it's vinyls and CDs are, I just read that the iPod, they're now selling them again at Urban Outfitters as like retro vintage, which is hilarious. But like that artwork is still celebrated. You still probably see it on T-shirts, and it's lasts.
Let me tell you something.
Yeah.
If I had a nickel for every time I saw a DMX T-shirt
Ready to
and
Die.
Urban Outfitters or Ready to Die, oh my goodness! Like
you should have a nickel for every time.
Yeah, you didn't know,
Who
right?
knew?
Yeah, Biggie? Did you know that Biggie was going to be Biggie? Like, was he just another guy that we were making a debut album for?
You have to understand that we were next door neighbors before Bad Boy even signed him. We were living next to each other on St. James Place.
So you knew him?
I knew him because he was doing his hustling thing.
Yeah.
But that was just, our version of another day at the office.
Yeah.
Like you just, you see him out there hustling, and then the next thing you know, he's in the conference room, and you're like, that's that guy from my block.
That's the guy I saw, downstairs. Yeah. Which is, again, you say it's a matter of factly. To us, this is a movie. You're describing a movie that, legitimately either has been made or will be made. But you know what I mean? It's just, mythical creatures and people that, just, again, it's hard to fathom.
Everybody comes from somewhere. We are in Brooklyn right now.
Yeah.
If you could just do the and turn the clock back, it would be that time, and these people would be walking the earth doing what they do.
I know you spent some time in Greenpoint in the 80s. What was it like? Did it have $18 guacamole spots like it does now?
No. It's really interesting. When I used to hang out in Greenpoint in the early 80s, even maybe it might even been the late 70s, like you couldn't walk around without an escort. The same way you see in movies when people, are walking around in the hood and they are, they don't have like an escort, you would get checked. It was the same way when you went into white neighborhoods. if you didn't have somebody with you, they would run you out of there. If you were lucky, you would just get ran out. And that was the thing about growing up with graffiti, is that our friends were across the spectrum, black, white, Asian, Latino, all of it. So, we never thought about, what your parents do. We just, if you like somebody's hand styles and they're cool people, the end, that's as far as it went, until you had to go to their neighborhood. And they would have to meet you at the train station and escort you in, because if you were by yourself, that might be the last time anybody sees you.
How does it feel now that everyone in Greenpoint is now a creative director? How does that make you feel as someone who has held that title now for?
I don't spend a lot of time thinking about it, but what I will say is I'm glad that people have gotten past the idea that Photoshop is a tool for graphic design. And, I was so tired of looking at Photoshop design, club flyers. And I thought, nobody's using Illustrator, or, I could even mention, Quark, and,
Quark
obviously
Express,
like InDesign is, king now. But I like it because it goes right back to the punk rock era. It's DIY.
Yeah.
The only thing that I hope is that the design is as good as the need to want to do it yourself.
Bars. Do you ever get called up by a young SoundCloud rapper or someone that finds you on Instagram and wants you to do their album artwork?
Sure. Yeah.
You ever entertain that?
I've done it a couple of times if I like the music.
Okay.
But there's just too many people out there, and the likelihood that one of these people is going to be the next LL Cool J or Beastie Boys or Slick Rick or Jay-Z is probably unlikely. But I have done it if, like I said, I like the music, and some of these people just don't take no for an answer. Their idea
and they're telling you they're the next Jay-Z. They're telling you.
And if they can meet you where you are today in your career, and you dig the product, there's no reason to say no. But what I don't understand is, what do they use the graphics for? Because like, to see it on the internet is not to experience holding a CD or even a cassette or an album in your hand. I just don't understand how it works.
It goes on the grid.
Yeah, it goes on the feed. I mean, so much also what you're describing too is like the album artwork, not just as like a cover, but as like a piece of like art, like a package, and also like, a fold out, right? There would be, sort of multiple pages, Kevin, there'd be sort of, sometimes you can open it up and there'd be a poster. Like there was a sort of an art to not just the cover, but the whole thing. And my old boss worked at Rockefeller for a little bit. His name is Chad Hogan, and he has designed some amazing album artworks. And I was always interested in not just the front or the cover, but the insides and all the sort of shout out pages and the documentary style stuff, that collage. A lot
of thought went into it, and I still have a whole bin of CD booklets, and I
booklets.
I
that was
tossed
the word I was looking
the CD because after a while it's like, okay, I already have it on vinyl. I saved some of the cassettes, and you start to wonder what you're saving it for, because even if you have an exhibition, the album covers sort of are what people are going to tie it back to. Nobody wants to see every format from 150 recording artists. They're like, okay, we get it.
Yeah, they're not interested in the booklets.
Right. Well, not from that many artists. I mean, we did a lot.
Do you have them in storage or someplace?
I have them in my archives.
Amazing. If you had to pick, what's your sort of favorite, most proud album artwork that you've done? I know it's
I would have to say it's a coin toss between Fear of a Black Planet and by Public Enemy, and Hello Nasty by the Beastie Boys.
Wow. Hello Nasty is because I was, we were looking into your background. Hello Nasty, 1998. I was 14 years old, and that I've always been a fan of the Beastie Boys.
Please tell me that you were at least born.
I was born.
Okay.
I was 3.
Okay. Oh my God.
And Hello Nasty is that's one of my personal favorite records of all time. And the artwork, the sardine can, space, sort of a retro type. It's a beautiful package, and I
have to stop you
I got to look
right
back at
now
it. Yeah.
and give a big shout out to my friend Bill McMullen, because while I owned the design firm, he was my lead designer, and he put his foot in it. He did such a beautiful job with that. And this is when having the skill of knowing how to use Photoshop really came into play. He spent so much time working with the band and really just long nights putting this thing together. And I don't really have a lot of opportunities to talk about it at length. And so I wanted to acknowledge that, because I knew he was brilliant then. He's probably doing something brilliant right now. But that was the thing that I'm most proud of, even independent of the albums that we designed, was the team that we had. People like Kenny Gravelis, Dee DeLaura, again, Bill McMullen, and my partner and buddy Steve Carr. We had a rock star team of really interesting, creative people, and there's just way too many people to name check. Oh, and Jason Noto from Morning Breath. Like, just so many folks that were just brilliant. And when I think about those times, what I remember the most is how much fun we had, and the idea that I was lucky enough to give some of these people their first job opportunities, and now they're in Mars because they're so damn talented. That's one of my favorite things about that time period.
Yeah, no, I think that's I really resonate with that, because to me that's when that's what I love to do. It's really about sort of giving opportunities and sort of helping other people find their footing in the door. And for a young Bill McMullen to do Hello Nasty, and that that album again means a lot to a lot of people, myself included. But just it's about giving to others and really opening up the door. And I'm on a website right now, and I'm looking through all the sort of the album listing and sort of the artwork and everything, and it's just it's perfect.
We had a blast doing that. And this is also where the Beastie Boys are at the height of their fame.
Yeah.
And they have complete creative control. And we spent so much time thinking about that cover and the inside packaging. We went through a lot of, Chinese and Asian takeout late nights between recording the music. I don't want anybody to think I'm saying I was recording music.
Yeah.
But we just went over ideas, and to know that management is not going to get in the way, the record company is not going to get in the way. The idea is what is going to win. And as creatives, you never have that kind of confidence to think that the best idea will always win.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. There's a quote here. It said that Bill planned to do a weird bottom of the sea type thing, but then Adam actually said, "Yeah, that's cool, but it's really cool, space."
Yeah.
I mean, listen, that's just how genius is born. And so, you've had such an illustrious career. And again, we could talk to you at length about every album. Before you get out of here, I just have a couple others I want to hear about. Chappelle. How does Dave Chappelle enter the picture of Cey Adams' life? And, what was the sort of brief, or what did he ask for when he said, "I need a logo for my show, Chappelle Show"?
Well, the funny thing is, like 3 weeks ago, I was with Dave Chappelle, and I heard him say to someone else that he asked me to create his Nike swoosh.
Wow.
And I thought, wow, that is not
That's not what happened.
That's not what I remember. Because I think I designed that the Chappelle Show logo in I want to say in 2001, and he sent me a VHS tape of a couple of skits from Chappelle's Show, and Chris Rock had introduced the two of us, and I heard his name. Maybe he was in whatever the movie is with Eddie Murphy, Boomerang. I think he had a small part in that. And so I think I had seen that, but by no means did I really know who he was. I knew he was a comedian. And so when Chris introduced us, we got together, and he, like I said, he sent me a VHS tape, and I sort of sat down and I watched it, and I thought, man, this guy is really like a throwback to the classic days. And I just immediately wanted to create something that I thought was revolutionary, because I thought he was, reinventing comedy one more time. And there's not that many people that have done that as it relates to, black comedians over the last 50 years. I mean, you could count on, half of one hand how many people have broken through in a major way. And he's one, and Chris Rock is another. I could just stop right there.
No, legends. Killing Them Softly. Again, this is my Mount Rushmore of favorite things. Hello Nasty, Killing Them Softly. And I will say, Dave has put that logo to good use over the years.
And
he uses it everywhere.
A champ.
Yeah.
I was saying this to him because I was excited enough that he was using it, with repetition.
Yeah.
And the same thing with Mary J. Blige. That is something that you hope for, but you cannot control that. And he said this in his own words. He brought me on stage at Madison Square Garden, and this is just a few short weeks ago. And he said, "You've helped to make this logo iconic." And I said, "I designed it. You made it iconic because you used it in so many different ways. I came up with the creation, but you put the gas in the car." And he gave me a diamond pendant.
Oh, sick.
Like not unlike the
yeah.
one that you're wearing.
No diamonds here, but just yes.
But he brought me on stage at Madison Square Garden. And now, if you've ever been to the Garden, any of you listeners out there, I've been to the Garden, but to be on stage at the Garden and I don't have a guitar in my hand or a basketball, like, forget about it. And he puts this thing around my neck, and it was just one of the best feelings ever.
Oh, man.
Hell of a pat on the back right there.
Yeah, that's a good thank you.
Yeah.
Sort of a chaining day moment, right?
Yeah. I can remember the last time I had a piece of jewelry, it was in the 80s.
Yeah. I did notice you didn't wear it today.
No, and if I was thinking, I would have.
Well, it's funny what you're talking about in terms of like logos getting meaning over time. And I think as designers, we all know that, we'll get a client or someone that's like, I want something as iconic as the Nike swoosh. And it's like, well, are you going to create a company as iconic as Nike, and then a check will become a swoosh?
Right, exactly.
And I think that's a great sort of story to say. Yeah, you created an iconic logo, and he turned it into a brand.
Sure, I couldn't even think of a better way to say thank you, and that's the kind of thing that most creatives would dream about, but you'd be doing yourself a disservice if you had a dream that big, because the likelihood is that you're going to be disappointed. And I just want to make something that I'm proud of in the moment that works for the client. The end. I don't even allow myself to see it past that. the job is service. It's like you're putting food on a plate and the person sitting down, you want them to love it, wipe their mouth and say thank you and say, that's one of the best meals I ever had.
That is incredible advice. Honestly, because I think so many young designers, like they're thinking about what is this going to do for the future, for them, for their career? What is this going to unlock? What's this going to create, opportunity for my next thing? And it's like, just do the job and make the person something that they're going to love.
Yeah.
And if then where it goes from there, you don't know. Like, I'm
you
sure.
have no control over that.
Yeah.
And it's easy for me to say what I just said because I've designed so many logos and album covers for people you have never heard of.
Of course. I'm sure way more than ones we have.
A lot.
Yeah.
And I was walking through the airport just a couple of weeks ago and saw one of those bands and I thought,
yeah,
I was like, wow, those guys are still out there. And nobody turned around with excitement. And so, juxtapose that with these amazing, famous people. But that's my reality, knowing that I've done a lot of good work that a lot of people have not seen.
Yeah. And I think that's, Stefan Sagmeister has a quote, like being a famous designer is like being a famous dentist, It's like, it's like no one really knows. But for the people that know, again, it's like you can go, at that Urban Outfitters or at the, sort of you see your work or wherever, you're like, you know that's you. And like,
but
again,
that's the job. If you're walking around as a designer, an art director, a creative director, and you're patting yourself on the back in real time, chances are the work is not that good.
Well, there's a lot of people that have just been put on notice.
Ego's a hell of a drug.
Yeah, ego's a hell of a drug. I mean, listen, take it from Cey. Your work speaks for itself. Before we get you out of here, I just want to transition or just talk a little bit about your more recent work as an artist. And obviously, you've kind of gone back to making things with your hands again. And I imagine that's very sort of exciting. And a lot of your work explores themes in brand, in, loyalty, capitalism. And, a lot of that, it seems, inspired by sort of your early years of, sort of rolling with some pop art, heroes and guys. Talk to me about sort of why, your work sort of explores that relationship and why it's so exciting for you.
Instantly, I thought I've been very fortunate in the, to be able to design what I wanted in the music space. And I just thought there's no way I'm going to continue to keep doing that same thing. I can think about, which recording artists over the last 20 years since I stopped doing design for, brands, or I should say record companies, because, brands is something different. But I could just stop right there and just say, okay, you know what, I've done that. And I just
box checked.
I just thought I wanted to do something different, even if I'm revisiting a place that I came from. And so the idea was, I've done this. There won't be another DMX or Jay-Z or Beastie Boys. So let's just move on and find something else that I can enjoy doing and maybe find another way to express myself. And so it led me to making fine art in the way that I did when I was a teenager, only now I have a lifetime of experience behind it. So when I'm working on things, I'm not trying to impress people. I'm trying to make things for me.
Yeah. And as you were saying before, you were making things for your entire career just to make other people happy, right?
That's the job.
Yeah.
It's not about you. It's about servicing the client. And if you're lucky enough to have it come full circle and to satisfy your soul at the same time, mission accomplished. But
it's a beautiful thing.
And so when I started making this work, the first thing I did was I wanted to celebrate my favorite brands. And so I did a body of work called Trusted Brands. And it's sort of tongue-in-cheek, but I am somebody that is a fan of logos and branding. and I'm not going to make something to disrespect a brand or logo that I like. It's all in homage. I am not saying that they're perfect, but the idea is really to shine a light on the craftsmanship of these people that design these amazing logos, and nobody's doing that right now. Andy Warhol and a bunch of other folks did it in the 50s and 60s, and I just thought it was time to revisit that. And the thing that I settled on was thinking to myself, okay, what's the number one brand in America? The American flag. Regardless of, how individuals see it,
Yeah.
it is, when you travel to Europe and Asia, they'll let you know in a minute whether they love or hate America.
Yeah.
It tells you it is the most popular brand in the world.
It's got new meaning these days,
Yeah,
unfortunately,
yeah.
but I think
But
that only makes it more interesting, right? Yeah.
One way or another, for good or bad, it's so. It is what is so. It is the most popular brand in America. And I thought I could have some fun by putting a contemporary spin on that, telling some interesting stories about who we are and where we come from, and breaking down the barriers of people seeing red, white, and blue as this sort of patriotic symbol. It's that, but it's also about a rainbow of people that have built this country and made it great. So it's not one or the other. It's all and both.
Yeah. And I think that's what's so interesting and so exciting about the work is like, yeah, these brands are, some of them are, they're corporations, they're 150-year-old sort of, entities. And some of them, they have, problematic sections on their Wikipedia, and that's part of it, and they have different meaning, but they touch all of us, right? In a way, or, we all have a relationship with Coca-Cola.
They all get an opportunity to try to correct that with time. And I'm not saying that, there aren't blemishes, but as long as you're trying to be better today, that's the most important thing. And when I get an opportunity to partner with a brand that celebrates diversity and gives me the creative freedom to do my thing, that's any creative's dream. That's exactly what you want. Mm-hmm. Somebody that sees you for who you are, respects who you are, and is going to give you the space to do your thing and not to be on your shoulder micromanaging you.
Well, that last part, we don't always get. But it is a gift, right? You're right. Like any opportunity, and I think that way all the time, especially designers. Sometimes, like I said, they're thinking 3 steps ahead. Any person that comes to you and says, I want your help, or I want you to work with me on this piece, is a privilege and is an honor to be in that position, to be asked. Let alone if they pay you. Then you're sort of the responsibility is real, and I think again, it's beautiful to hear you talk about design and art in that way,
because you could also not get the call and all those values could still be intact and you can't be mad. And that's one of the things that I say oftentimes as well, is that the call could go to one of my famous friends that also do art and design, and I can't be mad. I'm like, good. I'm happy to see that they got it right, because there's only a small handful of us. And if it went to that person or that person or that person, that's just as good as, them coming to me.
Yeah. I remember there was like a student that I was talking to, and he said that he got a call from Nike, and he wound up turning it down because they were trying to sort of, he said to take advantage of him and sort of weren't willing to pay him the rate. And I said, what do you mean? You're a student and they're Nike. Like, they were giving you an opportunity, and that opportunity could have helped you in so many different ways. And, you have to take that opportunity and be grateful for it, because you don't know when the next one is going to call, and
that's the definition of an idiot.
Exactly. And I won't put this person on blast, but I just remember thinking that is the total opposite of how I've made my career is, opportunities come and you have to appreciate them. And, especially when you're a young, sort of trying to make it in the world. He should have jumped
on that horse.
Yeah, exactly.
And put both his arms around it and held on.
And said, I'll do it for free.
Life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And people say, I don't want to do work for free, or I need to my value, my worth. And of course you need to get your worth, but like, I'm not saying you shouldn't, but when the opportunity is to get a Nike call.
This is the thing that young people have to take into consideration. If you do something for free, pro bono, whatever it is, nobody knows that but you. You can tell people whatever you want. When you show them your portfolio, that's a paid client. Yeah. Even if you didn't get anything, nobody knows the difference.
Yeah. And if you would have said to Adam Horovitz and the Beastie Boys, sorry, this is my rate, and if you can't meet that, you might not be sitting here with a retrospective of your work in museums.
It's just one of the things that I try to remind the team that I work with at the studio now is every time you're working on something, that's an opportunity for you to show people what you're capable of. All I'm doing is putting that opportunity in front of you. But you still have to get up there and swing and hit a single, a double, a triple, or my preference, a home run.
I've used that same analogy here in the studio. I said, listen, it's nice to hit doubles, but when you hit a home run, what it feels like, and it's the best feeling in the world. And to give people that opportunity, it's incredible. How does it feel to have this sort of retrospective, moment in your life where you see your work, the entirety of everything you've made in a museum? Like, what is that feeling for someone? I can't imagine.
It feels wonderful, number one, to be anywhere. We'll just start there. But the idea that all of this stuff happened with no blueprint or roadmap is an even better feeling, because it didn't happen for a lot of my graffiti and street art friends. And I just feel so fortunate that I get to wake up and determine my own fate every single day. If I need to sleep an extra 10 minutes, I can do that, and my lights are still going to be on. And I don't take it for granted 1 minute, because there's so many other things that could have happened to make the wind blow in another direction. And so every time I start my day, I literally live in gratitude, because I know that so many of my friends couldn't crack the code for whatever reason.
Well, I think that's a beautiful place to end. Thank you so much, Cey, for being here. When we started the show, we just wanted to talk about design in a way that was, not stuffy or boring, or sort of pinkies up, and sort of break down some of the walls of, kind of the white tablecloth of design. And I never in a million years did I think I'd get to talk to legends like you. So thank you so much for being here and for telling all those incredible, inspiring stories. Where can people follow you? TikTok? Where?
Well, they can certainly go to my Instagram. It's at Cey Adams, CeyAdams. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, like all of them. All of the platforms, same handle. But if you see somebody on there dancing,
you're not dancing?
It's probably created in AI. So,
I mean, listen, go back to the original roots of hip hop, right? B-boying. You stayed true to the graffiti. That was it.
Well,
you found your lane.
I just always thought it's hard enough to do one thing. The idea that you could be a Renaissance person and do all these things as a teenager, and have it be good, it was hard enough just doing one thing.
Yeah. Yeah, emceeing. I'm looking at the 5 elements of hip hop, which MCing, DJing, breaking, graph, and beatboxing. You just pick
That's
one.
a lot.
You know,
yeah.
just get, go hit one and do it hard.
Yeah.
You know, Kevin, you got any thoughts? I feel like Kevin, I want to hear
I've
from
been
Kevin.
soaking it up. It's
Yeah,
been
yeah.
such a pleasure. You ever think about picking up this spray paint again and tagging something?
I am over 60. I will just say that. We'll start right there. Second, there's no upside. I get to paint every day. And coming off COVID, all I want to breathe is fresh air.
That's true.
I gave away cases of spray paint after COVID hit. I was like, you know what? I can use a brush and get the same effect. I don't need to, do this anymore. And, it's just what it is. We're just in this space where I'm not trying to run from anybody. I'm not trying to out-talk anybody. I don't want to have anything but love come in my direction.
That's fair.
Beautiful. One of the things I read in our research was all your years of graffiti, all your years of tagging thing, never arrested once.
Well, it's not as
true?
many years as you would think. So look at it like this. If, even to be nice, let's say my career starts in 1976, 77, and it ends by 1983, 84, when my son Eric is born. How many years is that? You're young. You should be able to do this quick.
50.
Dude, I grew up on calculators. I don't know how to do math.
77 to 83. What is that?
Oh,
Yeah.
6.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's not that long. It's not that long.
So but all those years you never, no one got you.
This is the thing. All you have to do is be faster than the slowest person in your crew. And
There
so
you
if
go.
your crew is about 5, 6 people deep, what is the likelihood that you would be the slowest person? That's the way you
For
got to
me,
look at
pretty
it.
high, pretty. That's
When I was a
speed was never
teenager,
my thing.
all I did was run. All I did was run. And I'm, give or take, 10 pounds different than when I was as a teenager.
Yeah.
Maybe. I wasn't being outrun by anybody. So the idea that a grown man could outrun a teenager, no.
You don't have that desire though to put your name, Cey City, put that up anywhere.
At 60 years old, still, I could turn any job into that moment.
Yeah.
At any point in time. I could say, okay, I want to turn the clock back, and it's 1979 all over again. It's like, even just saying it out loud, I'm like, no.
You're good. Yeah. You like the technology, Uber, and it's
like, let's see what AI can do with it.
Yeah. Let AI. Do you ever, in terms of AI, do you see, people doing Cey Adams like work out there? They take your style and they put it into a robot and
God bless
sell it to
them.
them.
God bless them. You know what? I'm curious to see if they could create something that has the feel and texture of paint, like real paint.
Yeah.
It's one thing for something to live in a digital world, but to bring it into the real world, then that would be scary.
Yeah. They're at least 6 to 8 months away from doing that.
Right.
That's, don't worry about that. Your
Right.
job's safe,
Right.
as a fine artist for
Right.
at least another week.
Believe me, if they could create a machine that could mimic a hand gesture, put a can of spray paint in it, even as I'm saying it out loud,
You're
I'm starting to get nervous because that doesn't seem like it's that difficult.
No, I know. I mean, that's the thing about AI that, I've always felt too. It's like, well, they can't really do logos yet. They're really not doing packaging. They can't really do, brand identity quite yet. But it doesn't feel like they're not that far.
But the other
they're
thing
far
is,
away from doing it.
What I've come to notice is the client doesn't always demand the most from the creator. And so, oftentimes I've gone to pitches and things, and the person on the client side is 12 years old, and they don't have enough history to even know what good looks like. That's the scariest thing about design.
Yeah.
When the person hiring the talent doesn't know what good looks like. That's how bad design creeps into everything, because the client doesn't know what bad looks like.
I'm not going to say a single thing here. I would never disparage any of our clients.
But
they
you're
all
not
have
naming
incredible
names.
taste.
We're not naming names.
Oh, they're all just so great. They just
come on,
brilliant
Alex.
minds. They see things, in ways that I can't imagine. I'm just here to help them. They're so smart and so talented. Yeah, it happens to us all the time. No, it's true. That's the thing. Prompts, or it's about what someone isn't asking for sometimes. That is what comes out. Question for you there that we didn't get to. Is there any concept or anything that you worked on that you loved that just didn't make it to the world? Like any, something that you're just like, you still think about at night and wish that.
I don't have the space in my brain to reminisce about anything that did not happen. I'm happy if I can remember what I have to do today. And all of that stuff.
Linda,
it's just there's no space where I'm thinking about something that hasn't happened. It's just
that's incredible.
Yeah, no regrets. A life of just absolute iconic work and a kind human being. It's impressive, Cey. You really have cracked the code here, and you're still doing it.
Well,
still doing it. Clients still calling. Still looking. Still got briefs.
That's the job. Like I said. Grandkids, I got work to do. They don't care about any of this stuff we're talking about. All they want to know is the ice cream going to be on the cone?
And that's why you got to do that graphic design, got to pay the bills. But no, seriously, Cey, it's been an honor and an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for I think, again, like your work, it speaks for itself, but to hear some of the stories behind the work is, it's outstanding. And thank you for everything. And thank you for, coming here to Greenpoint.
Yeah.
Back to the old stomping grounds.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It's been so great.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Thank you.